Hi everybody and welcome to the second semi-final in the Onepagerules Warcry tournament. Today, the High Elf fleet will face the Robot Legions. So both of these armies won their first match. And if you would like to check out the details of the Onepagerules Warcry hybrid, then check out one of the previous battle reports or the description. But let's begin with a roll-off to see who will be the attackers. Purple dice, the High Elf fleet, and the green dice for the Robot Legions. So the attackers in this match will be the High Elf fleet. The Robot Legions are led by the Robot Lord. He is armed with a Gauss pistol and a face glaive, and with him he has 4 warriors, all of them armed with Gauss rifles. And then finally a bot swarm with swarm attack and a tough value of 3. They all have regeneration and they are robots and they are also slow. Leader of the High Elf fleet is an Elven noble armed with shard pistol and killing sword. And then we have 3 defenders armed with shotguns and 1 defender armed with shotgun and a gun platform with shard cannon. All of the elves are fast, and they have divided themselves into these battle groups. And as usual, we will draw the deployment card, the terrain card, and the victory conditions before we begin. And the first card is the card for the terrain. So we'll mix up the cards here and then draw a random card to see how the terrain will be in this semi-final. Next up, the card for deployment. Again, let's draw a random card here, and that card will determine how the forces will deploy. Finally, the victory conditions. And remember, the winner of this match will earn a place in the final. So let's reveal the terrain card. Not a lot of terrain here. So we'll make the battlefield in just a second, but before we do that, let's check out the deployment card. Ambush deployment, where some of the battle groups will deploy in the second round. Let's begin with the battlefield, and when all of that is ready, then the victory conditions will be revealed. And this is how the battlefield looks, made after the terrain card. Not a lot of cover in the middle of the battlefield and not a lot of buildings with walkways or platforms or anything, but this is how it's going to be. And now the 2 forces will roll off to determine deployment. A 2 for the Robot Legions, and again the High Elf fleet wins the roll-off, and they choose to be the red deployment. So their Dagger battle group will deploy in the second round, and the Robot Legions hammers will deploy in the second round as well. So according to the deployment, this is how the elves line up, and on the other side of the battlefield, the Robot Legions. And to the left side of the battlefield, the Dagger group of the High Elves will enter the battlefield at the beginning of round 2, and the 2 Robot Warriors here, the Hammer group, will enter in round 2 as well. But before we begin, let's see the victory conditions. Vanquish. The battle is won as soon as every fighter in the opponent's Hammer battle group is taken down. And after round 4, there will be some special conditions, but let's check out the Hammer groups. The Hammers of the High Elf fleet are the 2 defenders with the gun platform. And here we have the Hammers from the Robot Legions, these 2 warriors here that will enter in the second round. But finally, it's time to roll off to see who will activate first, and once again, the High Elf fleet have the lucky dice. Let's go to round number 1. So it's fast versus slow, and it's all about the hammers. So the first activation here is the elf defender with the gun platform in the hammer group. He seeks cover behind the wall. First activation of the robot legions is the robot lord, and he moves all he can do. Remember, we play by the kitchen table rules, so all distances are cut in half. So next up, the second defender from the hammer group. He also takes cover behind the ruined wall. And second activation, the bot swarm here, the only unit of robots who is not slow, so it can move. It also has Strider and will be able to move into the middle of the battlefield here. Next up, the Elven Noble. And of course they position themselves to be ready to the hammer group from the robot legions that will enter the board in the beginning of the next round. Another robot warrior moves. They have Gauss rifles with a long range, and the shotguns of the High Elf fleet has a very short range, and that could be decisive in a type of battle like this one. So the strategy of the robots must be to take as good a position as possible and see if their Gauss rifles can shoot targets from a distance. And this is how it looks after the first very strategic round. The robots have moved as far as they can, and the elves have taken cover behind the walls. And now the Dagger battle group will enter at the left side of the board, and they will enter here because they are close to the hammer group. And remember, they have to eliminate the hammers, and they cannot enter the board more than in the lower left part. So they can't deploy away from the elven defenders more than this. Let's see how things proceed in the second round. The elves finished first, so they will also activate first in the second round. And why not activate the newly entered Dagger battle group here and take a shot at one of the robot warriors from the hammer battle group. So 2 shots with the shotgun against the robot warrior. And he will need a 4 to hit, so that will be 1 hit. And it's an AP nothing weapon. The warrior will defend with a roll of 4. And he fails his defense roll, so already now the robot legions could lose one of their hammer warriors, but he has regeneration. So a roll of 5 or 6 will regenerate the wound, and that's exactly what happens. These robots are tough to get down. So a nice shot, but the robot warrior is not wounded. Instead, he moves slightly, and then he fires back with his Gauss rifle with a range of 12 inches. He needs a 3 to hit. So the defender is hit by the rifle with 1 shot. He will need a 5 to block, and that fails. And he has no regeneration, so 1 wound will take him down, and he will be forced to roll on the wound chart. And it's a roll of 5 that backfired for the Elven defender. He is shot down and out of the game. First casualty. Next up, the defender with the gun platform. Even though he is a part of the hammer group, he is offensive, and he moves in cover behind the wall and fires the gun platform at the other warrior from the hammer group. The gun platform has a range of 12 inches, so he can only fire the short cannon, but that will be 6 shots, and he will hit on a roll of 4. And the 6 here, so one of them is rending. And then we have 2 regular hits, a total of 3 hits against the warrior. He will defend with 4s, but the rending shot, of course, will need a 6 to be blocked. And that could be tough even for the robot. He will defend the regular hits first, and he fails both of them, and then the rending one, and that one is good. So potentially 2 wounds, but again, he can regenerate. And he doesn't regenerate any of these hits, so he takes 2 wounds and goes down. And that means a roll of 4 on the wound chart will take him out of the game. And that will be the first casualty of the robots if that happens. And it is a roll of 4, so he is out. And most importantly for the High Elf fleet, they have taken out one of the warriors from the Hammer group. And that means now the robot legions must do everything they can to target the High Elf fleet hammers. And he is not able to get himself inside shooting range. What about this hammer? He moves back. He takes cover and he moves out of shooting range, a defensive move. The robot lord continues his march against the elves, and he is also out of shooting range at the moment. Now the second defender from the Dagger group that just entered here in the second round. He takes cover, but he moves all he can, so he's not able to shoot. On the upper part of the battlefield, another warrior marches on. And now the Elven Noble. He moves against the Robot Lord, who is the most dangerous opponent, and he is too close at the moment. So she will fire her shotgun 2 shots. One of them hits the target here with a roll of 5. So the Robot Lord will have to block, and with a roll of 6, he shakes off the gunshot as if it was nothing. And now the bot swarm rushes at the center of the battlefield on the edge of this poisonous pool of slime. And then the Elven Defender moves out from behind cover, and that is to be in shooting range. And the gun shot here fails. He needed a 4 to hit the bot swarm. And that was the last activation of the second round. 1 casualty on each side, but the robot who was taken out was part of the Hammer group, and the hammers are the targets of this battle. So that was unfortunate for the robots, but they have positioned themselves better. And we will see what will happen in the third round, where the robots will activate first. And this robot warrior is the first unit to activate, and he can move 2 inches and get himself into shooting range and line of sight of the Elven Defender here. He has 1 shot, and he fails miserably. He would have needed a 4 to hit. And now this defender has a golden opportunity to win the battle. He can fire 2 shots against the warrior, and he fails both of them. Remember, this is the last warrior from the Hammer group, so if he had taken him down, the battle would have been over. Now, this is not the case. Instead, the bot swarm charges against the elf here behind the wall, and that one is also a part of the Hammer group. So, let's see, 3 swarm attacks hitting on a roll of 6, and all 3 attacks fail. Now the defender can fight back with 1 close combat attack, and he will hit on a 4. And, well, with a roll of 5, it's a hit. The bot swarm has a defense of 6 and fails, but there is still a chance to regenerate, otherwise 1 wound. And the regeneration roll failed, so 1 wound against the bot swarm out of 3. And now the defender with the gun platform moves slightly to the right, and then he fires his platform as well as his shotgun against the bot swarm. That will be 6 shots, all of them hitting on a roll of 4. And, well, not a great shot. But one of them will hit the target, and that is a rending shot, so the bot swarm will have to defend on a roll of 6, and that one cannot be regenerated. 2 wounds. And now this warrior turns around and fires his Gauss rifle against the defender. He is a potential threat against the warrior from the hammer group, and he hits with his shot. So once again, the elven defender will have to come up with a roll of 5, and he fails, so 1 wound. And let's see his fate with the roll on the wound chart. It's a roll of 6, so no doubt he is shot down and removed from the battle. And now to the upper part of the battlefield. The elven defender moves into shooting range and he fires his shotgun. He will need a roll of 4 to hit, so he hits with 1 regular hit and 1 rending hit. So the robot will need a 4 to defend that one, and he fails, and then he will need a 6. And that one also fails, so 2 hits. One of them cannot be regenerated, the other one can, and he does. So 1 hit, and that will take him down, and he will be forced to roll on the wound chart. And with a roll of 5, the score is even. The robot is taken out. The robot lord activates now, and he is so slow that he cannot charge the elven noble. But he can move closer and he can fire his Gauss pistol. He will need a roll of 3 to hit. And he hits, and that is a rending hit. So a roll of 6 is needed for the elven noble, and that is not possible. So 1 wound down. The elven defender closest to the bot swarm has already been into battle, but he still has his activation and he can shoot his shotgun. 2 shots, and one of them here will be a rending hit. So once again, the bot swarm will have to come up with a roll of 6, and once again, it fails. So that will be 3 wounds now. And since it's a rending hit, it cannot be regenerated. Instead, a roll on the wound chart, and that one is good enough. A total of 8 would have taken out the bot swarm. It's now the elven noble's turn to do something about the robot lord. She only has 1 attack with her killing sword, but it is a deadly sword. So if she hits with a 3, the robot lord will be in trouble. But a roll of 1. So the killing sword hits everything else but the robot lord, and now he can fight back. And he has 3 attacks with his face glaive, and he will hit on a roll of 3. And he hits all 3 attacks, and it's an AP4 weapon, so the elven noble must roll 6s to block any of these hits. And she fails it all. So she is hit now with 3 additional wounds to the one she already has, and that's a total of 4. And that will be a tricky roll on the wound chart. Anything more than a roll of 3 will take her out. And she rolls low enough to stay in the battle, but she is stunned in a very exposed position. So once again here at the end of the 3rd round, there were equal casualties on both sides. But the elven noble went down here at the end of the round, and she is very exposed now because the robot legions will activate first in the next round. And round 4 will begin with the robot lord. He is close enough to charge the elven noble, and since she is stunned underground, she is immediately removed. And that is a heavy loss for the High Elf fleet. Because that means they are down to half strength now, but they immediately retaliate, and the defender here charges the bot swarm and also removes that one from the game, and that means the robot legions are also down to half strength now. And this robot warrior can move far enough now to be in shooting range of the gun platform. But it's in cover, so he will need a roll of 4 to hit. And That's a failed shot. Now the hammer group defender with the gun platform could run away, but he could also take up the challenge against the robot lord, and he does. So he fires all he's got against the robot lord. 6 shots, hitting on a roll of 4. And he hits twice. Again, not a great shot, and none of them are rending, so the robot lord will defend with a roll of 3. And, well, no hits. And then the robot warrior here from the hammer group, he must be careful not to be too close to the gun platform, but he moves slightly closer. The elven defender here also tries to position himself out of shooting range, but still close enough to be able to move and shoot in the next round. And that was all the activations in the 4th round. So now we'll have to check for morale for the elves and the special robot morale test. And we will begin with the elves here. They need a roll of 4, and this one continues to fight. And now the 2 hammers, if they both fail, the battle will be lost. The first one here with a roll of 6 is good, and then the gun platform defender here, he will also need a roll of at least 4, and he does, so all the elves have passed the morale test. And now the robots, they need to roll a 1 or a 2, or they have to not roll a 1 or a 2, so to speak, because if they do, they will take a wound. And so far, all of them have passed the test as well. What about the final one? Very important, because that was the one from the hammer group. And we will now continue to round number 5. Again, the robot lord marches on, and he is close enough now to charge the gun platform and the hammer defender. And he has the devastating 3 attacks, but what a roll! He fails all of his 3 attacks. And the surprised defender can't fight back. He is too messed up to hit anything, but still he actually survived the attack of the robot lord. Incredible. Now let's see if he can get himself together and fire back. He moves into a better position in cover from the other warriors, and then he fires his 6 shots against the robot lord. 4 shots from the gun platform and 2 shots from his shotgun. He will need a 4 to hit with any of them. And this time it's a lot better. None of them are rending, but he hits 4 of his shots. And the robot lord will need 3s to block. And he blocks one of them, but he fails with 3 rolls of 1 in a row here. So potentially 3 wounds, which will be enough to take him down, but he still has his regeneration. So let's see. Oh my god. He is really in a bad shape at the moment. He does not regenerate any of the hits, so he will take 3 wounds. But with a roll of 4, it's a total of 7, so he is not taken out. He is stunned, but wow. Now the second warrior here, he moves 2 inches and fires his gauss rifle against the elven defender, and he hits nothing. And now the elven defender here tries to take out the approaching warrior. He fires his guns but hits nothing. And finally this warrior moves closer and also fires back, and again he hits nothing. And final activation of the round is the remaining elven defender from the hammer group. He moves. He does not get too close, but he can still fire at the stunned robot lord, and 1 hit will be enough to remove him, and that's exactly what he gets. 1 hit with a roll of 4, and that means the robot lord is out of the battle. But the target of the mission is still to eliminate the hammers, and once again at the end of the round, morale tests will be needed. Again, we will begin with the elves. So first, this one, he is not a hammer. And that is good because he failed his morale test and he is removed from the battle. And now the two remaining elves up, both from the hammer group, and the first one here, a roll of 5, he stays, so they will proceed to the next round. And then the gun platform also passes the morale tests. They keep fighting. Now the pressure is on the robots. This one, a roll of 2, and that will give him 1 wound. He will go down. And now the warrior from the hammer group, if he goes down, the battle will be more or less over. But he passes the test. That means that we will go to round number 6 now. And the only robot to activate is this warrior. He moves forward and he takes a long shot against the elven defender here. He will need a 4 to hit. And he gets a 6, so it's a rending hit. And the defender fails the defense roll, so he takes 1 wound. And he will be forced to roll on the wound chart. And it's a 5, so he is taken out now. He is, of course, a member of the hammer battle group, so that was a very important hit. Now only 1 elf remain, but that is the one with the gun platform. And he moves out of cover. It's now or never. He can fire 6 shots against the hammer robot warrior here. And that could, of course, be the decisive moment of this battle. Let's see. And he needs a roll of 4 to hit. So we have a few hits here. 2 regular ones and 1 rending. That could be enough to remove the robot warrior. But of course, he has a chance to defend. He needs 4s to defend the 2 regular hits, and he does. So the rending one remains. A roll of 6 is needed, and he fails, so he takes 1 wound, and he cannot regenerate. So he's down, but maybe not out yet. Let's see the roll on the wound chart. And as far as I can see, he passes the roll. He is down and stunned, but not yet taken out. And the other warrior cannot do anything else but get back up here. And that means that the remaining elven defender has to do one thing now to pass the morale test, and he will win the battle. A roll of 4 or more. And he rolls a 5. It's a victory for the high elf fleet, because the stunned warrior here will be removed automatically, and that will eliminate all the members of the hammer group in the robot legions. And just to continue the morale tests, this one will take another wound, but it really doesn't matter because the battle is over. The high elf fleet have won the battle and they have earned their spot in the final. So check out some of the previous matches and join me for the final battle in the Onepagerules Warcry tournament. Thanks a lot for watching.